It's good to see everybody, even though I can't really see you. But I can see some of you. Marsha, I see you. Susan, I see your ceiling. Okay. Now I see you. Okay.
Now I see Susan.
Yeah. All right. So we're continuing in Tehillim Kapitel Yud Tes. This is one of those Kapitlach where I don't have the heart to move on to something else before we really cover it well. So I'm going to take my time. And we're going into Pasuk Tes. The David HaMelech says over here, Pekudei Hashem Yesharim Mishamchei Lev. The Pekudei Hashem. Now the simple translation, if we want to translate Pekudei Hashem, our default position is that the Pekudei Hashem are the mitzvahs of Hashem. Now we're going to have to work on this word Pekudei. Exactly what does it mean? It's a very tricky word, Pekudei. But we'll get to that a little bit later. First, we'll go me'akal ala kaved, from something simpler to something a little bit more complex. Thank you very much. Okay. So, the first thing that struck me over here is, if you remember, all the way back, I think 3 shiurim ago, to the beginning of the kapitel, we were talking about the Shemesh. And David HaMelech began the kapitel by telling us that the Shemesh, if we look at the Shamayim, if we look at the wonders of the heavens, that alone screams out to us that there's a Borei Olam. Okay. And then David HaMelech switched into the topic of the Torah. And we said then that David HaMelech's kavanah in this kapitel was to tell us that while it's true that the wonders of the Shamayim will scream out to somebody that there's a Borei Olam, and it will start him down the path of Emunah and B'tachon and Yiras Hashem, but it's not enough. And in order to really become an Oved Hashem, in order to really recognize what it means to serve the Borei Olam, we can only come to that through the Torah HaKadosha. And David HaMelech in the rest of the kapitel is telling us the different lessons that we learn from the Torah, and how the lessons that we learn from the Torah surpass the lessons that we learn from the Shamayim. So on that theme, there's a very fascinating Metzudas David over here. The Metzudas David says, Pekudei Hashem Yesharim, the mitzvahs of Hashem are Yashar, they're straight, they're Yesharim, Mishamchei Lev, and they make the heart rejoice. Says the Metzudas David, Mishamchei Lev, the Pekudei Hashem make the heart rejoice. V'lo yichein hashemesh, the sun is not that way. Why? Ki machnis da'aga b'leiv ha'adam, because the sun gives a person cause to worry. Shelo yihye nilkeh b'roiv chumay, that he should not be struck by either the extreme heat of the sun, or nowadays when people go out to the sun, right away everybody says, did you make sure to put on your sunscreen? So while it's a beautiful sunny day, you go outside and you're so happy that the sun is out. At the same time, the sun has drawbacks. We look at the sun and we worry about the UV rays, and we worry about sunburn, and if it's going to get too hot and too humid, we're not going to be able to do what we need to do, and we need sunglasses, and we need our sun hat. So the sun is imperfect. So says David HaMelech, he's comparing and contrasting the Torah to the Shemesh. The Shemesh has its place, but you should know that the Pekudei Hashem are Yesharim and they're Mishamchei Lev. They cause complete happiness. There's no drawbacks to the Torah HaKadosha. Now, when I saw this Metzudas David, I looked at it and I said, it seems to me to be a bit odd. It seems to me to be, it's comparing apples and oranges. What are we comparing over here? We're comparing the Shemesh to the mitzvahs of Hashem. We're comparing sunburn to what? We're saying that the sun is imperfect because it causes heat and it causes sunburn. You know, the Torah HaKadosha, I don't want to chas v'shalom say anything negative about the Torah HaKadosha, but somebody looks at the Torah HaKadosha and he says, you know, the Torah also comes with its share of restrictions and etc., etc. So it just struck me as being an odd comparison. But then I remembered, and some of you, I'm sure that I've said this over in the past in the shir, but it's one of those things that I'll say over 100 times because I think it's so beautiful, and the lesson of it is such a valuable lesson. I'll always say it over, and that is when years ago when I was learning Second Seder in yeshiva with my good friend Shapsi Horowitz, who some of you may know from RPRY. He was a Rebbe in RPRY for many, many years, and he married the granddaughter of Reb Shimon Schwab. And B'Saif Yamav, when Reb Shimon Schwab wasn't well, he stayed for a period of time by one of his grandchildren in Muncie. And he used to enjoy sitting outside and learning outside. Excuse me. So, it happened one day that he was sitting outside in the backyard in the sun. And as the day wore on, and it started to get a little bit darker outside, they thought maybe it's time that he wants to come in. They asked him if he wants to come in. He said no. And he sat in the backyard and he watched the sunset. And then after the sunset, they said, no, is the Zayda ready to come in? And he said no, and he stayed outside. And he stayed outside until he saw the moon. After he saw the moon, he said, jetzt verstehe ich Pshat in the Pasuk. Now I understand Pshat in the Pasuk. And he was referring to a different Pasuk in Tehillim. And they asked him, what are you speaking of? So he said, David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Yoimam Hashemesh lo yakeka. By day the sun should not smite us. V'yareach baloila. And the moon at night. So Reb Shimon Zechat Tzadik Kadosh Levracha said he doesn't understand the pasuk. He says, Yoimam Hashemesh lo yakeka. Somebody wants to be mispal that by day the sun shouldn't smite him. He says that I can understand. Like we just said over here, the sun, it produces excessive heat sometimes. The sun could give you sunburn. The sun could hurt you. But what does it mean, v'yareach baloila? Yoimam hashemesh lo yakeka, v'yareach baloila. And the moon at night. What about the moon at night? So Reb Shimon said that this pasuk is not talking about the light of the sun. It's not talking about sunburn. It's not talking about moonburn. He said it's talking about something completely different. He said we know that light, is always used as a reference to Gilui HaShchina, when the Shchina is revealed to us, and when the Shchina is close to us. Choshech and darkness is always used as a reference to Hester Panim, when the Ribbono Shel Olam hides, unfortunately, himself from us, and we don't see him so clearly. Said Reb Shimon, that's what David HaMelech is speaking about in this pasuk. He says, Yoimam, when we have day, when we have Gilui HaShchina, when we're living with the Shchina in our midst, when we have a Beis HaMikdash, it should be rebuilt b'mehera v'yameinu. See, with all this technology, I always forget something, so I forgot to put one of my mics on. Hopefully it's working. So when we have a Beis HaMikdash, and we have the Shechina in our midst, then we have to be mispalel, Yoimam Hashemesh lo yakeka. When we live together with the Shechina, then the Ribbono Shel Olam is danos kechut hasayra. When we're living with a Beis HaMikdash, when you see nisim v'neflois, when you have a Beis HaMikdash and the Shechina is amongst you, then the Ribbono Shel Olam sometimes could be very hard on us. The Ribbono Shel Olam could be, I don't like to use the word very hard, but the Ribbono Shel Olam could be demanding. So we ask, Yoimam Hashemesh lo yakeka. That brightness of the Shechina should not strike us. The Ribbono Shel Olam should cut us some slack. The Ribbono Shel Olam should remember, the Ribbono Shel Olam never forgets, but the Ribbono Shel Olam should take into consideration that we're a basar v'dam, and that we live in an olam agashmi, and the Ribbono Shel Olam should cut us a little bit of slack. But when we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, when we're living like we are nowadays in Golus, we ask the Ribbono Shel Olam v'yareach baloila. But we ask the Ribbono Shel Olam that he should always leave us a moon at night. What does the moon do for us? A traveler is out at night, or an ocean going voyage. Somebody is out on a ship. They count on the moon to be their guiding light. They count on the moon to guide them. And when we live in a time of Hester Panim, and we don't see the Yad Hashem clearly, we should always have a Yoreach. There should always be a moon. There should always be something that we could look to that will guide us on our way. Leave us epis from the Shechina. So I think that when I saw this Metzudas David, I looked at it and I recognized the words of Reb Shimon Zatzal. And I said that the Shemesh is machnis daga b'leiv ha'adam. Sometimes the Gilui Shechina is a little bit hard. But we ask the Rabbeinu Shalom Shalo Yeh Nilka B'Roiv Chaimai. We don't want to be smitten. We want the Gilui Shechina. Don't get me wrong. That's what we're mispal for. We want the Gilui Shechina. And we want to rise to the occasion of the Gilui Shechina. But we also ask that the Rabbeinu Shalom should go a little bit easy on us at those times. Now that brings me... Can you close the curtain? It also brings me, though, to something that I realized a couple of days ago. And that is that the time that we're living through with all of this COVID-19, and it's not only COVID-19 at this point, there's so many different things going on. Even those that are non-observant and even non-Jews, they recognize and they realize that this is odd, this is strange. It seems to be one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. It seems very, very strange. And what struck me about it is, I remember in my younger years, I remember learning Nach. And I remember I would learn Nach. I think it's more boilet. It jumps out at you more when you learn Nach than when you learn Chumash. You learn Nach, and you learn about how Klal Yisrael, when they were good, the Rabbeinu Shalom took care of them. And then you turn the page, and you go to the next parak, and suddenly Klal Yisrael is not behaving so wonderfully. Well, then the Rabbeinu Shalom brings an enemy, and then an enemy starts chapping with Klal Yisrael. Then the Rabbeinu Shalom sends a Navi, a Shofet, and then the Klal Yisrael does tshuva. And then the Klal Yisrael does tshuva. Well, then they get back in the good graces of the Rabbeinu Shalom, and now suddenly the Rabbeinu Shalom is taking care of them again. And then some Avera crops up, and then there's another Navi, and then there's more tshuva. So as you learn Navi, you watch how the Rabbeinu Shalom is being metapel with Klal Yisrael. The Rabbeinu Shalom is being very hands-on. You know, we talk about helicopter parents and I don't know what they call them, helicopter parents and latchkey kids, and you have parents that are more involved and parents that are less involved. So the Rabbeinu Shalom, it always looked like, is a very hands-on parent. He's being metapel with us, like in the Midbar. You look in the Midbar. We're learning these parshas now. So you have the Meraglim, you have the Egel, the Rabbeinu Shalom is upset, and you have the Meraglim, and the Rabbeinu Shalom is upset, and he's talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to Klal Yisrael. But there was a constant involvement and a constant tipul between the Rabbeinu Shalom and the Klal Yisrael. But in my younger years, I would learn this, and then I would say, but how about us? How about us? We don't feel that. We don't see that. We go through life day by day, another day, another day, another day, a very temporal existence. We're caught up in the busyness of Olam Hazeh, and we don't see b'chush unless we open our eyes and really look. It doesn't jump out on us. You know, the Navi is not calling up and coming and saying, oh, you did this wrong, your Rosh Hashanah wants this from you, if you don't do it tomorrow, this is going to happen. We don't see that. So when I was young, I would learn these parshas, and I would learn the Navi, and I would say, but how about us? I feel like somehow we've been forgotten about, Chas v'Chalila. The Rosh Hashanah is not being metapel with us like he was then. And the truth is that at the beginning of this crisis, somebody asked me, at least if we lived in the days of the Nevi'im, so the Navi would come and the Navi would say, you know why this is happening? I'll tell you why it's happening. It's happening because you don't treat tefillah with enough seriousness. And it's happening because you go to shul and you talk in shul. I'm not throwing out why this is happening, believe me. I don't know why. I don't know the answers to why. I'm just throwing out ideas. The Navi will come and the Navi will say he doesn't like what we talk about in shul, or we don't daven enough, or we don't, or like Klausenberger Rebbe Zechet Tzaddik Kadosh Levracha once said, the Batei Midrashim are open. The Chazal tell us Miyayim Shecharav HaBeis HaMikdash Ein Lo Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam Elo Dalan Amashal Chabulvad. The Chazal tell us that since the Churban Habayis, the only place that the Shechina is in the Beis HaMedrash, and the Beis HaMedrash is open, and there are no locks on the door, and you can come in whenever you want, and we don't come in. Not enough people come in. So the Rebbeinu Shalom put locks on the door, because you don't come in, I'll put locks on the door. Until this began, did we have a true appreciation for what it means? Va'ani b'roiv chastecha avoi veisecha. We say it every morning. Va'ani b'roiv chastecha, I, through your abundant kindness, avoi veisecha, I come to your house. Did we really feel that? Did we really feel va'ani b'roiv chastecha avoi veisecha? Well, we took it for granted. If we want to go to shul, we go to shul. If we don't want to go to shul, we don't go to shul. So we took it for granted. So the Rebbeinu Shalom put locks on the door. Now you don't take it for granted anymore. Now you know what it means. So this person said to me, at least if there was a Navi, so we would have an authoritative position on why this is happening and what we have to fix up. He says, but now we don't have a Navi, so we don't know anything. My response was, why do you think we don't have a Navi? Don't be a fool. We don't have a Navi. Open up the Nevi'im, and learn through Nevi'im. And you'll see that the reason we don't have a Navi is because when we had a Navi, it wasn't effective. When we had a Navi, when Yirmiyahu went around Klal Yisrael yelling and screaming, did the Klal Yisrael listen? So we don't have Nevi'im because we didn't listen to the Navi. So we don't have a Navi. So what does the Rebbeinu Shalom want from us? What the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from us is, like Chazal tell us, everybody knows Nigei Atzmai. Everybody knows what he has to work on. If everybody spends time looking into his life, he'll figure out what lesson he has to take from it. And if he really can't figure out what lesson he has to take from it, he could go to a Rav, he could go to his Rebbe and ask his Rebbe. And if he doesn't have a Rebbe, if he doesn't have a Rav, he should go out and get one. That alone is enough. So the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling us now, go ahead and work. But now you see the Rebbeinu Shalom being metapel. The Rebbeinu Shalom is making it easier for us. Until a few months ago, how many times did I say in this shir that if a person really will sit down and a person will really look into his life, he'll see the imprint of siyata d'shmaya every minute, every day, every hour, every day. You sit down at the end of the day and sit and think about the different things that happen to you during the day. You'll always see something where you say, that was such a siyata d'shmaya. Such a siyata d'shmaya that the Rebbeinu Shalom did that. I didn't know how I was going to solve this problem. I had financial problems. I didn't know how I was going to solve my financial problems. And suddenly, the Rebbeinu Shalom made a very strange thing. This COVID-19 comes along, and I didn't lose my job. Baruch Hashem, I have my job. So my income is the same. But there's all sorts of COVID-19 programs now, hardship programs, that I could use that legally. I'm not talking about shtick. There's all sorts of COVID-19 programs that could help a person. And he's eligible for it, even if he didn't directly suffer. So suddenly he has ways of helping himself and recovering financially. So it's siyata d'shmaya. There's a million siyata d'shmayas. But you have to look. You have to open up your eyes, and you have to look, and you have to think, and you have to really be ma'ayin, and you have to open up your eyes and your mind to understand. You have to be willing to see, willing to hear. Now the Rebbeinu Shalom just made it a lot easier. You see how the Rebbeinu Shalom is being metapel. You see how the Rebbeinu Shalom is pulling strings. Take a look at what's going on. Take a look how it's being shown to us so clearly. To make a gathering of 10 people to have a minyan, that's a problem. But to have 5,000 people without masks and without social distancing running around the streets like unhinged chayas, that's fine. So what does that show you? What does that show you? It's not logic. It's not derech hateva. it shows you that the Ribbono Shel Olam is pulling the strings, and that the Ribbono Shel Olam is being metapel with Klal Yisrael. So if you see that the Ribbono Shel Olam is being metapel with Klal Yisrael, how could you not respond? How could you not respond? You have to respond. You have to sit back, and you really have to think, and you really have to ask yourself, what do I have to do? The tzibur that I'm part of, what does the tzibur that I'm part of have to do? How could I assist? How could I add? How could I contribute to the work of the tzibur? What do I have to do at home? What does my approach to davening have to be? What does my approach to Limud HaTorah have to be? All of these are questions that we must ask ourselves. You see that the Ribbono Shel Olam is there. You see that the Ribbono Shel Olam is asking the questions. How could you not respond? You must respond. Pekudei Hashem Yesharim. We didn't answer the question. We didn't even scratch the surface yet of what are Pekudei Hashem. So I've mentioned already several times in this kapitel that the Malbim goes through what all of these different facets of the Torah are. It just struck me that in my preparation for the shir, I forgot to take a look in kapitel Kuf Yud Tes and see what he says about Pikudim in Kuf Yud Tes. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick it up quickly in the middle of the share, but I'm just curious. Yeah, okay. The Malbim says on Pikudim over here in Kapitel Yud Tes, the Malbim says, what are Pikudim? Pekudim are those portions of the mitzvahs that were given to us as reminders. So the Malbim over here is using the word pikudim, pekaid, in its meaning of remembrance. Zichreinenu fiktoinenu. We ask that the Ribbono Shel Olam should remember us, and we use different words. Or like Yosef HaTzadik said, Pakaid pakaditi eschem. The Ribbono Shel Olam will remember you. So the Malbim says here, Pekudim are the mitzvahs shehem miyuchadim lezecher al yedei dvarim emuniyim. They're the mitzvahs that serve as reminders of emunah. K'may hamayadim al yitzias Mitzrayim, like the Yom Tovim, we say zecher yitzias Mitzrayim. Oy b'midos, or the mitzvahs that serve as reminders of the work that we need to do on ourselves for tikkun hamidos. For instance, the Malbim says, K'may mitzvahs prika u'te'ina, like the mitzvah that we have to help somebody load or unload his animal, peah, matnos aniyim, tzedakah. All of these are mitzvahs that we do, that one of the benefits, one of the kavanos of these mitzvahs, the Rishonim tell us, is tikkun hamidos. The Sefer HaChinuch, we don't know exactly who the Mechaber of the Sefer HaChinuch was, but we know that the Mechaber of the Sefer HaChinuch was a Rishon. And the Sefer HaChinuch writes on all the mitzvahs, the Sharashim, the roots of the mitzvahs, or the word we used in Art Scroll, the underlying purpose of the mitzvah. And the Chinuch writes in his Akdama that even though we can't ascribe reasons to the mitzvahs are min hashamayim, they're way beyond us, but the Chinuch says, we do have a right to look at the mitzvahs and analyze and see things that the Ribbono Shel Olam wants us to learn from the mitzvahs. So mitzvahs like tzedakah, mitzvahs like matnos aniyim, that we have to leave peah from our sada, leket, shikha, peah, these are the crops that we have to leave over for the aniyim. These are all mitzvahs that help us in our tikkun hamidos. A person is supposed to be a rachem. Mahu rachum, afato rachum. Just the way the Ribbono Shel Olam has rachmanus, we have to have rachmanus. So we have to have rachmanus on an ani. Now, a person is not necessarily born having rachmanus. One person has more rachmanus, one person has less. One person, Nebuch, was born an aksar. The Ribbono Shel Olam put each and every one of us into this world imperfect. Not a single one of us came into this world with perfect midas. You have one person who's a balgaiva, you have one person who's a kaisen, you have one person who's a kamtzen, you have one person, you have everybody. has challenges in their midos. And one of our jobs in this world is tikkun hamidos. Mesilas Yesharim points that out in the Hakdama. He says if we don't pay attention to it, how are we going to work on tikkun hamidos? I pointed out in my Mesilas Yesharim share. Unfortunately, how many people do you know where you turn around and you say, yeah, he has anger management problems. I remember when we were in elementary school together, he used to lose his temper. Rabbeinu Shalom, 40 years ago he was a kaisen. He's still a kaisen? But unfortunately, yes, like the Mesilas Yesharim says, if somebody doesn't spend time on tikkun hamidos, if somebody doesn't set his mind to realizing the importance of tikkun hamidos, he's not going to do tikkun hamidos. And guess what? If he doesn't do tikkun hamidos, he's going to remain the same person that he was in elementary school. If he was a kaisen in elementary school, he yells at his wife 40 years later. That's the nature. It doesn't change unless you change it. So you have to change it. So the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us mitzvahs, and some of the mitzvahs are there to assist us in tikkun hamidos. Says the Malbim, Pekudei Hashem Yesharim. These Pekudim are straight. They're Yashar. Shenasu al pi haYosher v'hatzedek. And he contrasts it to the Pekudim that are Asu b'nei Adam al pi haskamasam. You know, I just saw a book written by Uri Zohar, and he says in there one of the things that brought him to Frumkeit. So he says that the Rebbe of his that really turned him on, so to speak, he says that he was talking to him, and the Rebbe pointed out to him, he says, I'll prove to you that Torah is min hashamayim, because he started showing him that there are mitzvahs that there's no way a Yelud Isha, there's no way a Basar Adam, there's no way a man would go ahead and invent such a mitzvah and give it over to a group of people and they would accept it. He says, how are you going to have a situation where a person is going to get up and he's going to make up a law and he's going to say, if an old man writes 2 letters on a piece of paper on Shabbos, you have to take him out and stone him. Who's going to accept that? No one's going to accept that. Yet we have such a mitzvah in the Torah, and it was accepted for thousands of years. So he said, so you see, the Torah must be min hashamayim. And the people obviously understood that it's min hashamayim. Nobody's going to make up such a law. Can you imagine if Governor Cuomo tried that one on for size? Who's going to boot him out of office in a minute? So you can't look at the Torah Kedosha and say, yeah, it was made up. It was made up. Who would dream to make up such a thing? And what society in their right mind would accept such a thing? So if some nut made up such a thing and tried to put it on a book, it would be scrubbed off the books in 6 months, or in a week, or in 2 days. But he wouldn't even have the guts to make it up. Yet we have this for thousands of years. So obviously it's Torah min hashamayim. But the Malbim says over here, he says you have to realize, all man-made ethics, all man-made laws, all man-made conventions, because of their man-made, what authority do they have? What makes them stick? It's like one of my kids asked me a couple of weeks ago, he says, I don't understand. He saw a dollar bill, a silver certificate. So the silver certificate was backed up with silver. So the reason this dollar is accepted by a vendor is because it has value. Why does it have value? Because there's silver in Fort Knox that backs up this piece of paper. This piece of paper is like a stock certificate. If I have a stock certificate, so if I have a share of Coca-Cola and it's trading at $52 a share, it's not that the piece of paper is worth $52, it's that the piece of paper testifies to the fact that I own a share of the company that's worth $52. The dollar bill is not worth money. The dollar bill is a representation of the silver in Fort Knox that's worth money. But nowadays, the paper money is not backed up by anything. So what gives the paper money value? So I told him, it's only a haskama. All it is an agreement. That's all it is. It's an agreement between people that this funny paper that's printed with special green and special black ink is something that we all agree has value. And since we all agree that it has value, so you could buy a container of milk with it from me, and I'll pay for my electricity with this piece of paper. But all it is a haskamas b'nei adam. That's all it is. It's just a convention that a bunch of people got together and agreed upon. The same thing goes for ethics and everything else. If it's not divine, it's only a haskama. That's all it is. It's just an agreement between people. What if some of them don't agree? Everybody makes a big deal now about the Constitution. The Constitution is just a paper. What if the mobs that are running out on the street decide that just because some slave-owning, biased, misogynistic, backwards, primitive people living in the 1700s, just because they wrote a piece of paper and they signed their names on the bottom, why am I held to that standard now? Maybe they'll turn around and the haskamas b'nei adam will change. The people don't agree anymore, so now it's time for a new paper. That's all it is. It's only haskamas b'nei adam. So the Malbim says that the pekudim of b'nei adam, they're not yashar and they're not mismachei leiv. Because think about it. I don't care what law, I don't care the New Deal, Old Deal, Green New Deal, Yellow Medium Deal, whatever laws, whatever ethics, whatever conventions you'll look at, that any society, any country, any ism, any communism, socialism, democracy, progressivism, libertarianism, whatever ism you want to come up with, what one of them is flawless? What one of them has really raised up the human condition to a point where you look at it and you say, this is mamish mismachei leiv. This is something that's yashar. It's not yashar. All of these programs and everything else, none of them are yashar. They all have loopholes. They all have, we take a look at what goes on nowadays, right? We have such an enlightened society, and we want to be full of rachmanus, and we want to be full of care for our fellow man. Okay, so we let people run rampant and loot stores because we have to be understanding. And all of the corporations, all of the billion-dollar corporations in the United States are tripping over themselves apologizing. Now, don't get me wrong. Things that were done wrong to people are terrible wrongs. And they should be addressed. And they must be addressed. And the victims of wrongdoing deserve sympathy. And they deserve to be cared for. But when a man-made government comes to try to grapple with these things, and they pass laws and they pass conventions, how many people do they hurt? On their way to their do-gooding, how many people do they harm? How many people do they hurt? Ever heard of redistribution of wealth? Yeah, we're going to help people. So the way we're going to help people is we're going to be Robin Hood. We're going to take what you earned, we're going to take what you put your blood, sweat, and tears in, and we're going to redistribute it. We're going to give it to somebody else. That's yashar? That's straight? It's not yashar. But pekudei b'nei adam, that's the way they are. Because adam is limited. The Gemara says in Shabbos, chalolo shel malchus, the depth of what a malchus has to do. You realize the United States government is dealing with 300 million people in different states and different cultures and different environments, and they have to make laws that somehow shtelzu to everybody and work for everybody. It's not even possible. So pekudei b'nei adam are not yashar. They're never yashar. Right? The city, the state, they come along and they say, COVID-19, we have to help people. So we're going to give out money hand over foot. How many people are getting things that they don't need, that there's no reason that they should get it, and we're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars. How much of it is being wasted? But you do have to help people, and you have to help people in a hurry. So you have to construct a program in a matter of days. How are you going to do it? How are you going to do something that's only going to help people and not hurt people? It's not going to happen. But the Torah HaKadoshah doesn't have those limitations. They're pekudei Hashem. Pekudei Hashem yesharim. The pekudim of the Rabbeinu Shalom, The tikkun hamidos, that the Rabbeinu Shalom gives us mitzvahs, so that those mitzvahs should help us in tikkun hamidos. The ethics that the Torah HaKdosha teaches us, the mitzvahs of the Torah HaKdosha, those are yesharim. They're yesharim and they're mesamchei lev. Malbim says one of the reasons they're mesamchei lev is because a person who follows the pekudei Hashem, he sees what comes out of them. He sees what the effects of the pekudei Hashem are. Look at the Gedolim. Look at the Gedolim. Look at the people who live by pekudei Hashem. See if they're happy. Are they happy people? Do they have fulfilling lives? Do they have happy families? Pekudei Hashem yesharim mesamchei lev. Look at the pekudei b'nei Adam, the American dream. Does the American dream bring happy people? Does it bring fulfilled people? Does it bring happiness? Do we have a culture and a society from sea to shining sea that's full of happy, fulfilled, satisfied people? Or do we have rampant drug use and alcoholism and therapy sessions and Xanax? So something's wrong. That's not mesamchei lev, because that's pekudei b'nei Adam. Let me see if I have... Where's my paper? Let me see if I have time. We don't have that much more time, and I'm going to continue with this pasuk next week, but I'm just going to say one more thing on this pasuk, something short. The Gemara in Yuma darshans this pasuk. The Gemara says, Pekudei Hashem yesharim mesamchei lev. The mitzvahs of the Rabbeinu Shalom are misameach a person. They're misameach the lev. Amar Reb Shmuel bar Nachmeni. Reb Yonasan Rami. Reb Yonasan asked a contradiction. On the one hand, Ksiv Pekudei Hashem Yesharim Mesamchei Lev. We have a pasuk that says the mitzvahs are misameach a person. Ksiv, but we had it in the previous kapitel, in kapitel Yud Ches, we had a pasuk that says Imras Hashem Tzerufa. The words of Hashem refine a person. How do you refine metal? Metal doesn't enjoy being refined, because the way you refine it is you put it into a smelting furnace. So the Gemara is bothered. On the one hand, it says the Pekudei Hashem Yesharim and the Mesameach a person. On the other hand, it says Imrais Hashem Tzerufa, that the words of Hashem, the words of the Torah HaKdosha, they refine a person, and the connotation is it refines them through suffering and difficulty. That doesn't sound like mesamchei lev. So the Gemara answers, Zacha misamchasai. If he's Zaycha, if he merits it, the Pekudei Hashem will be mesameachim. Lo Zacha, but if he's not Zaycha, then tzarfasai. Then it will refine him. And I think most people learn that what that means is, if you're Zaycha, if you merit it, if you're a good person and you really follow the Pekudei Hashem, then it's mesamech you. If you're Lo Zacha, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, schar v'einish. You do what you're supposed to do, you get schar. You don't, you get einshim. So then Imrais Hashem Tzerufa. But that doesn't make sense to me, to understand the Gemara that way. And I'll tell you why. Two reasons. First of all, the pasuk in kapitel Yud Ches says, Imras Hashem Tzerufa, the words of Hashem will refine you. Mogein hu, they are a shield, l'chal ha'chaisim bai, to all those who put their hope in the Rabbeinu Shalom. This pasuk does not sound like it's talking about Chas v'Chalila, Russia. Doesn't sound like it's talking about somebody who's doing the wrong things. It's telling me that the same Imras Hashem that are Tzerufa, that refine him, are a Mogein. They're a shield. They protect him. Mogein hu l'chal ha'chaisim bai. Also, if that's the answer to the question, okay, you could say that that is indeed the answer. The psukim are not a stira at all. What's the stira? You're right, Pekudei Hashem, if you listen to the Pekudei Hashem, they're mesamech you. Imras Hashem Tzerufa is talking about a person who's not listening. So if he's not listening, so Imras Hashem Tzerufa. but it's not the Imras Hashem that are refining him. He's not listening to the Imras Hashem. He's being refined because he's not listening. So the Pekudei Hashem are Mesamchei Lev because you followed the Pekudei Hashem. The Imras Hashem Tzrufa is somebody who didn't follow the Pekudei Hashem. So what's the stira? So I wanted to say a little bit of a different pshat. And what I wanted to say, and we'll close with this, is that the Pekudei Hashem are Mesamchei Lev. If you're a Zoicha, like we said last week, if a person is mevatel himself to the Torah, if a person lives by the Pekudei Hashem, but he does the Pekudei Hashem, not pshat that it's hard but I'm stuck. Or like the Yeshiva Zatzal used to yell about, those people who said it's a shver, it says ein a yid. It's difficult to be a yid. If you do the mitzvahs that way, then you're not Zoicha. You're not going to be Mesameach. The mitzvahs aren't going to be Mesameach you. If you kvetch when you do the mitzvahs, chas v'chalila, then the mitzvahs aren't Mesameach you. But they are tzrufa. Maybe they will refine you. Because the bottom line is you're doing Maaseh mitzvahs. And maybe you're doing it with Mesiras Nefesh. So hopefully, eventually you'll get to the point where it will be Mesameach you. But that person is Imrais Hashem Tzerufa, Mogen Hu L'chal HaChaisim Bay. He's doing mitzvahs. The mitzvahs maybe will protect him. And he's doing the mitzvahs because he's a Chaisim Bay. He puts his faith in the Rabbeinu Shalom. So even though he finds it hard, he says, "No, was kann ich tun? Ich bin Ayid. I have to do it." So okay, so on that level, the mitzvahs will be a Mogen. It'll shield him. The higher Madrega, the Zoicha, is the Pekudei Hashem Yesharim. The person who realizes that the mitzvahs that I'm doing are yashar, they're straight, and they're wonderful, and they're perfect, and they're good. That person, the mitzvahs are Mesamchei Lev. They give him great simcha. Mirz Hashem, I want to continue a little bit on this pasuk still next week, because there's a whole other thought that I think is very important for us to learn from it. So maybe we'll get to finish that pasuk and go a little bit weiter. Again, it's wonderful to see everyone, even though I'm not really seeing them. But I could see some of you over